that we're going over right now, what we're doing right now, going over feeling versus doing, right versus wrong, is like an abridged version of the fourth through ninth step. So a lot of like feeling versus doing. How am I feeling? What is the feeling I'm experiencing? And what am I doing that is generating this feeling? And then is it right for me to do that? Is it wrong for me to do that? Is it right for me to feel this way? Is it wrong for me to feel this way? I love how in the literature it was talking about, maybe you are angry. Maybe you're in a situation where you should be pissed off. Okay, now that you're pissed off, is it right for you to behave this way? Is it right for you to act this way or do whatever we believe we should do? And that's where you never know what the right decision is. That's the thing. You're not going to know what is the right or wrong decision to do in every single circumstance in response to every emotion or whatever the case may be. This is where failure comes in. Maybe you're going to fail sometime. Maybe you're going to succeed at other times. You have to be willing to do what you believe is the right or wrong thing. And when you do what you believe is the right or wrong thing, you know, I how can I say this? When you do what you believe is the right and wrong thing, it's more likely it makes, if you're wrong, it makes it a mistake. Then you see what I'm saying? Like, could you, like, you ever seen someone who has good intentions but they just do dumb shit? Like, you're like, dude, I know you were trying to help. Like, I actually can see how you were trying to help, but that just made it worse, you know? When you're more willing to forgive someone in that case, you know what I mean? But someone who's intentionally maliciously doing things like that and their intent is to annoy or anger us, then maybe there's a different right or wrong way to respond to something like that, um all of these questions and answers are going to have to be made when it's happening. This isn't something that I'm hoping that we don't continue. The goal is to recognize what we're feeling, understand what's causing the feeling, and either do something to stop that feeling or engage in something to continue that feeling, I would assume. And this daily inventory can help us stay on track of that. Same thing, let's say it's a diet issue, right? And someone feels they're trying to change their diet and they're looking at their weight fluctuating. When they get to a degree, let's say one day they wake up and they're 10 pounds overweight. If they look at what they ate the night before, pizza and water and soda or whatever the case may be, maybe their weight today would make more sense. You see what I'm saying? And maybe you're behaving the way you are because you got no sleep the night before. Maybe you're hungry. Maybe you're fucking thirsty. Maybe you had a shitty morning because some unexpected thing happened, Maybe uh maybe 6 months ago something happened with your hormones that caused you to be a little bit more susceptible to things that make you frustrated. Like, there's really no telling what is causing you to feel this way or act this way. But if you're not trying to understand, you never will. Maybe you can understand this, just maybe. If you don't think you can, then you're never gonna. Okay, let's continue. Sometimes the only thing we need to do is feel with our feelings, is actually feel them. We don't need to react to them. For instance, if we've lost someone, we're gonna feel sorrow. Our sorrow may go on for a long time. It will be lifted when we've grieved sufficiently. We can't afford to let our sorrow drag us down to the point where we can't go on with our lives, but we should expect to be affected. We may be easily distracted or have a hard time participating in activities that are supposed to be enjoyable. We need to strike a balance between being in denial of our feelings and letting them overwhelm us, which is one of the main benefits that we said would be caused from doing this daily inventory is feeling less overwhelmed. We don't want to go to either extreme. This seems like a simple concept, almost as if it could go without saying. But many of our members share that it takes years of recovery before we're able to achieve this balance most of the time. So the 10th step grants us the freedom to feel our feelings by helping us see the difference between feeling and doing. Are there times in my life when I'm confused about the difference between my feelings and my actions? So have you ever experienced that, where you are confused about how you're feeling and why you're feeling that way? You ever have that happen? So you ever let's see. Anybody in here ever been depressed? Raise your hand if you've been depressed before. Okay. Back in the day, early in your depression, did you always know why you were depressed? Or was there ever a time where you're like, why am I depressed? Why do I feel, am I depressed? You ever done that before? You're like, am I fucking depressed right now? What the fuck? That's never happened to you? You always know why you're depressed?
Happened to me.
It happened to you? So can you expand?
I feel like I'm lightweight falling into depression now because it's rainy and gloomy outside. I just want to go back to the house and go to sleep.
Right. And that's natural. You know, there's less sunlight. Sunlight wakes you up. If you don't have much sunlight, maybe you're more apt to be sleepy. It's taking longer for that chemical exchange in your brain to happen, you know. Feeling a little depressed right now. Are there times in my life when I'm confused about the difference between my feelings and my actions? Yes, probably. Can somebody expand on this? Expand. Expand. I can call names.
When I'm feeling depressed, sometimes it's like I'm doing the things I need to be doing to like battle against it, but it's not changing anything.
So sometimes you feel like you're doing what you are supposed to be doing, but the results aren't coming.
Yeah.
So that's the fail to generate thing. Sometimes you're unable to identify what fails to generate restoration. Anybody else? Can somebody else either expand on that or another example? Are there times in my life when I'm confused about the difference between my feelings and my actions?
Well, I don't know if this counts or not, but I feel like I should talk to my best friend that was killed. I feel like I need to talk to his mother, but I feel like she knows what happened. But because I was there, she wants to hear from me, and I've avoided her for almost 20 years now on it. But the action would be to sit down and tell her what really happened and how her son got killed.
Mm-hmm. And you're confused about, is this feeling because I should do it, or is this feeling be like, because I mean, feelings aren't necessarily facts. So
no, I don't feel like I do feel like I owe her. I feel like I should tell her what happened, but I felt like she should already knew through police reports and all those type of stuff. So,
okay,
and they were consistent with what I would have said. So, but yeah, I do feel like I should say something to her, but I haven't acted on it.
Okay.
Every time I see her,
right. Okay. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else? I just remember that place of being depressed and not knowing why. And that is so scary. That is a horrifyingly scary place to be. And it's so crazy because in the midst of wondering, I remember like wondering why I'm depressed. And I was unable to see that my room was a mess. I was unable to recognize that my relationships were destroyed because of me. I couldn't see that, you know, I was unable to see the things that were generating my depression. And I was in the midst of them. Like here I am in a pool of depression and I'm looking for a field of depression or some shit. You know what I mean? I'm like looking for where is it? Like where is my depression so I can avoid it? And I can't connect like doing drugs with leading to depression because this feels really good. Like something that feels this good can't be causing my depression. Now, not only that, it's like the solution to our problems. Like alcohol is helping me. If I don't have, I need to feel alcohol because then I wouldn't be able to have this conversation or whatever the case may be. And that confusion day in and day out causes health problems, relationship problems, career problems. The longer I go not knowing why I feel this way, the more unmanageability can occur because I'm not taking power over what's happening. I'm unable to recognize the very things that I'm doing that are causing this problem. And why is that? You're looking at a total distortion of morals. You're looking at someone like me in a room that is covered in clothes and papers piled up and books piled up and dirty clothes and soot everywhere and alcohol over there. I had a lazy stick that I used to turn my fucking light on and off, you know? And I think it's right. I think there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with not having sheets on my bed. There's nothing wrong with drinking every day. There's nothing wrong with living in my parents' house. There's nothing wrong with treating my parents like this. There's nothing wrong with drinking and using every night or every fucking weekend. I don't see anything wrong with calling out of work. I don't see anything wrong with showing up to work drunk. So if I don't see anything wrong with that shit, then I'm not going to associate wrong feelings with it because there's nothing wrong with it. Why? That's not making me feel bad. That's actually making me feel good. And this is from continuous usage. This is from our brains getting distorted from using and maybe even defending these usings. And now we have to figure out that, you know, just because we get sober, we make these amends, we restore ourselves to sanity, whatever the case may be, doesn't mean that we're not capable of continuing to cause that harm. It doesn't mean not only to other people, but to ourselves too. Like us not recognizing our feelings and our actions causes harm to other people. When I'm unable to recognize that my actions when I'm angry hurt other people, then I'm going to be hurting other people when I'm angry. And that's going to cause a problem for me. And if that's the problem, then that's the same way drinking was the problem, right? And now all of a sudden anger becomes a problem. And it's easy for somebody to justify that type of harm if they don't think that's harm. If they think that it's wrong for someone to say that I caused you harm because of something so minuscule. But this is where everybody's feelings are valid to them. So to them, that feeling is valid. That feeling is justified. To us, it might not be, but that doesn't matter if it's not justified to us. We still cause that harm. So now we're transitioning into, is it right or wrong for me to feel this way or to act this way or whatever the case may be? This tells us that we have to promptly admit when we are wrong. This step assumes that we know when we're wrong. But the fact is that most of us don't, at least not right away. It takes the consistent practice of taking a personal inventory for us to become proficient at figuring out when we're wrong. Let's face it, when we're new in recovery, we had been at odds with the rest of the world for some time. Our living skills were reduced to an animal level. We don't know how to communicate with others well. We began to learn in recovery, but in the process, we made a lot of mistakes. Many of us went through a period of time when we became very rigid about the values we had developed in recovery. We applied that rigidity not only to ourselves, but to everyone around us. We thought it was principled and correct to confront those whose behaviors was unacceptable. In truth, it was our behavior that was unacceptable. We were self-righteous and overbearing. We were wrong. Or some of us, after years of serving as a doormat for everyone to walk across, decided our recovery required that we become assertive. But we went too far. We demanded that everyone treats us perfectly all the time. No one could have a bad day and fail to return our phone calls. No one was allowed to be emotionally unavailable for us for any length of time. We angrily demanded service at the places we did business. We weren't being assertive. We were being immature and belligerent. We were wrong. We can end up being wrong if someone hurts us. How? Say our sponsor says something very hurtful to us. Instead of taking it up with our sponsor, we walk to 10 or 12 of their closest friends at the next 3 meetings we go to. Before the week is through, half of our local community is talking about the rotten thing that so-and-so did to one of his sponsees. And that's if the story even stayed as it was originally. So the situation started out with us having done no wrong, but ended up with us being responsible for damaging our sponsor's reputation in the program. The place where he needs as much as we do to be allowed to make mistakes and recover at his own pace. You ever get into an argument with someone and they are wrong, but you end up losing your emotions and it no longer becomes about them. It becomes about you getting so angry. You ever have that happen? Like, dude, you just punched a hole in the wall. It's not that big of a deal. You don't have to yell at me. You don't have to get angry with me. You know what I mean? And at first they might have done us wrong. And if we maintained our emotions, then it could have just been them doing wrong. But we got so angry and resentful that they cheated on us. It could have just been them cheating on us. That's it. They could have cheated on us, whatever. But we got so bitter and angry and resentful that we go key their car. You know what I mean? It's like, whoa, you caused harm. You harmed them because you were unable to manage your emotions. And maybe you caught a court case, you know? I know legitimate stories where that has happened. You know, you could have just left them cheating on you, but this chick had to pull out a gun and point it at this guy, and he ended up calling the police, and then she gets in trouble, right? Not saying, I mean, what's right or wrong? I don't fucking know, you know, but I do know that if we were able to manage our emotions in that time, then maybe we wouldn't have gotten in trouble. Have there ever been times when you've been wrong, but not aware of it until later? You ever have that happen?
Yeah.
How did that go? Expand on that. What was that like?
Felt stupid.
Yeah, dude, definitely feel stupid.
Now, you know, after I had processed it and realized I was wrong, I'm like, damn, I was wrong. I had to admit to myself.
Mm-hmm. You ever been mid-argument and you recognize you're wrong, but you've already committed to this side. So you
Yeah. I do a lot of nitpicking.
you what?
You do a lot of nitpicking.
Yeah. And you're like, fuck, dude, they're right. But I can't lose this fight. So you like defend the insane thinking, and you're just like, you know what, man? And it's funny because then you'll just be like, you know what? I don't even want to talk about it. I don't even want to talk. Get the fuck out of my face. I don't even want to talk about it. Because we know they're right. Have you ever, dude, you ever like assume something on, how can I describe this, dude? I'm trying, like, you ever get upset with someone only to realize that, like, I mean, this has never happened. This is just a made up story, but it's like you yell at someone like this lady in the checkout line at the grocery store is like fucking up or something like that. And you're like, yo, it's fucking easy, lady. Just scan the fucking thing, you know? And the lady goes, I'm sorry. I've just been up all night taking care of my husband dying of bone cancer. And you're just like, you're like, I'm sorry, dude. You feel this fucking small, dude. You know what I mean? That fucking small. Go ahead.
Again, man, I was running late for work and I stopped and got an energy drink, and there was an old lady in front of me saying a whole bunch of numbers. And I was like, damn, I wish you'd hurry up. So I was, in my head, I was saying a lot of shit in my head, like, what is she doing up this early saying no? But, I had realized she was trying to strike me big, so I just went with the flow.
Mm-hmm.
I've been working on it. I used to be very impatient.
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I've been working on that, but I used to be very impatient.
And another thing is, it's like impatient. I also find myself judging. You know what I'm saying? Like I begin judging these people when it's like a classic thing you hear. It's like you don't know what someone else is going through. You never know what someone else is going through. So like always be nice to people because you never know what they're going through, you know? There's a lot of I've had humbling moments like that in rehab. Quick anecdote. I was in rehab one time and I remember being like, I was very bitter and resentful towards my mother. And I was saying, man, I can't believe my mom won't send my car down. How am I going to make it to meetings? How am I going to get a job? She's such a fucking bitch, like blah, blah, blah. And this guy goes, bro, Jimmy, at least you got a mom, man. My mom died 10 years ago. So maybe you should talk about her a little bit better. Those moments where you feel this fucking big, dude, you know? And those moments, they're still there, dude. They're gonna be there. You know what I mean? And in those are like, make your amends, say you're sorry, say my bad, dude. I'm fucking sorry. You're right. That is amends. That is, accepting my shortcomings, saying you're right. You know what I mean? It's like that in itself is recovery right there. But you know what some people say? Some people will say some shit like, my mom died 10 years ago, so maybe you should talk nicer to your mom or some shit. And people say something like, dude, you don't know my mom, though. You don't know my situation, though, man. You don't understand. Dude, all right. Go ahead, then. I don't understand. See ya. You know what I mean? Then go act the way you're acting, bro. See where that gets you. See where it gets you. Go ahead. Feels good, doesn't it? You know what I mean? Doesn't it? Feels good. It feels good to be right. It feels good to tell people they're wrong. You know what I mean? And it's like, dude, you're right. I don't know your situation. You know what I'm saying? You're right. I don't know none of that. I don't know anything like that. But one thing I do know is that harboring resentments ain't fun. Thinking that I'm I'm unique. You know what I mean? That I know it all. That I'm fucking right about everything, dude. All that's gonna do is hurt me later on down the line. You ever have that shit happen where there was something you could have done really easy? Like one day I delayed registering my car. I was like, I'll do that fucking later, dude. I'm not gonna do it now. You know what I mean? And you delay registering your car, and then you end up getting pulled over for that shit. And it's like, what the fuck? I should have just registered the car. I should have just done that. Why did I wait so long to do that shit? You ever have that happen where you should have just done it? Like, maybe I should have just not drank. Maybe I should have just said, no, thank you. You know, when you look at, then you go to register your car, you're like, bro, this took me 15 minutes. It took me 15 minutes to go to the Kroger, walk in, go to the kiosk and fill it out. But I pushed it off for who knows how long, ended up having to pay more money and all this other shit. It's the same idea. I could have just said, you're right, and just moved on. But instead, I had to tell them they're wrong and try to prove them or whatever the case may be. That is, it's too far down. You know, we don't, it's useless. It's pushing us away from relationships and so on and so forth. And what this inventory can allow us to do is maybe at the end of the night, you take a second to think about these things and question yourself. A lot of people don't question themselves. A lot of people go to bed saying, you know what? I'm right. I'm right. They're wrong. And they just go to bed with that. You know what happens when they go to bed with that? Their brain just downloads that information. It's literally what happens. Your brain downloads that information. It's like, I'm right while you're sleeping. And then that's like what you think. So when you go to bed on a foundation of some shit like that, you're solidifying it. You're hardwiring those types of behaviors and thought processes. How do your wrongs? So when you're wrong, right, and you know you're wrong, and it's wrong, how does that affect your life? When you do wrong things, how does that affect your life?
Makes you feel weird.
It does what?
It makes you feel weird.
Makes you feel weird. Fuck yeah. How does doing the wrong thing affect your life? It makes you feel weird. What else?
You feel guilty.
Guilty. How do my wrongs affect my life? How do my wrongs affect my life? How did breaking the law affect your life? Anybody get a DUI in here? You ever do that? How does that affect your life?
Took my license.
Oh, that's effective. That's a big fucking deal. As a result of deciding to drink and drive one night. You see what I'm saying? It's like that's a wrong that majorly affected my life. In a major way. How does a DUI affect your family's life?
Even worse, because I used to take my daughter to school. Now my wife has to rush to get her to school and get back to work.
Boom.
Every morning.
Yep. Thank you. Anybody else have any other wrongs? Right? Just think of your wrongs. What is wrong that you've done? You know, stealing. How does stealing affect my life?
Go to jail.
How does that affect the lives of other people? Let's say drinking too much, too often was wrong, right? That was wrong. I probably shouldn't have drank so much, so often. How ultimately has this affected your life?
I'm in rehab now.
Amen. How does that affect the lives of other people?
They don't get to see me.
That fucking sucks. But you know what? They will get to see you. They will get to see you. Some people, they don't get the opportunity to do this shit. Some of them, they make the wrong and they never get to the chance to make it right. Some people make the wrong and they don't get the chance to make it right. Maybe they don't accept the amends. Maybe they die. There's some people out there who make the wrong mistakes, wrong turn, wrong place, wrong time. How does that affect the family? You know, yeah, you may be in rehab right now. You may have done some wrong shit, but you have the opportunity to make an amends. Our friends and family who did wrong and they're dead, they don't have that opportunity. If you know someone who's overdosed accidentally, someone who's committed suicide or died in a drinking and driving accident or something like that, right? They don't have the opportunity to go to their mom or their dad and say, it's going to be okay, Mom. It's going to be okay. You don't have to worry about me anymore. I'm okay. I love you. I'm always going to be with you. We're going to, you never have to worry about me again. No, you never get to hear that shit, You never get to make those amends. And that is a void. That is a void that is never going to be filled. That is a God-shaped void. And the only thing that people can say is, God needed them. Why am I going to question God? How am I going to question God? You know what I mean? It's like when all they want to do is just hear their fucking voice again. I just want to hug them again, and it's too bad that they made a mistake that cost them their life, but I can learn from their mistakes. I can learn from their wrongs. You know what I mean? I don't have to volunteer myself to do wrong, dude. Like, wrongs hurt us so bad, dude, in ways that we can't even fathom. Just consider, and let me tell you something. If you cheat on a test, right, you're going to have to learn that lesson. And if you cheat or take shortcuts in life, life is going to continuously show up to teach you that lesson until you get it right, until you get it correct. And when you're going through life, thinking about your day-to-day decisions, those signs from God, those moments that he's handed us to work on these things are easier to see. It's easier to see the wrongs when I'm aware that I'm even capable of being wrong. There's a certain degree of humility that comes with that. Anybody have comments or anything?
Real shit. That's it.
Yeah.
It's hard enough to figure out when we're wrong. Admitting our wrong can be even more challenging. Just like in the 9 step, we have to be careful that we're not doing more damage by making the admission. So this goes back to you discussing with the mom, right? Maybe I'm doing more damage by making this admission or something like that. Many of us realize we've hurt someone close to us, perhaps because the person stopped speaking to us, but we aren't quite sure what we said or did wrong. Rather than taking the time to reflect on what we might have done or ask the person, we decide we'll just cover up all eventualities and make a blanket admission. We approach the person and say, please forgive me for anything I've ever done in all the time we've known each other, done to offend or hurt you. The 10-step requires that we take the time to personally reflect. For instances, just like this. Chances are that if we think about when the person's attitude towards us changed, and think about our behavior immediately preceding that change, we'll know what we did wrong. It might be painful or embarrassing to think about. It definitely takes effort, but so do all the steps. Laziness is a character defect just like any other, and we can't afford to act on it. Then again, if we're truly stumped, if we just can't pinpoint anything we might have done or said that was harmful, and there's nothing wrong with approaching that person and saying we've noticed that he or she seems to be angry or upset with us, that we care about our relationship with that person, and that we want to hear what he or she has to say. Most of us are afraid that we'll hear in a situation like this. Most of us are afraid of what we'll hear in a situation like this, but we can't let our fear stop us from working step 10. Like, that answer they give us is the answer to amend that problem we have or that relationship. There's another way we can render our admission wrong, of wrong, completely ineffective, admit we're wrong, then immediately point out what the other person did first that made us act as we did. For instance, say one of our children used poor manners, so we yell at her and call her a name. Now, when we admit we're wrong, if we tell our child that her behavior made us act this way, we've delivered a message that justified our first wrong, thus making ourselves doubly wrong. That is fucking nuts, dude. I wouldn't have yelled at you if you didn't do this or that. Unlike the process contained in 4 through 9, when we go through events from the past, 10 is designed to keep us current. So, like I've been saying, the inventory that we take 4 through 9 is a large inventory over the span of years. This inventory that we're taking is like a daily inventory. You know, it's not as large. We need to try, we don't want to let unresolved wrongs pile up. We need to try our very best to stay abreast of what we're doing. Most of our work will be done by making constant adjustments to our outlook. If we find ourselves becoming negative and complaining all the time, we might want to spend some time thinking about the things for which we're grateful. We need to pay attention to the way we react when we've done something wrong. Is it our first impulse to make an excuse? Oh my God! Those motherfuckers, dude. Are we claiming to be victims of someone's negative influence or of our disease? Dude, I have a sponsee who's always saying, bro, I ruined my life because of drugs and alcohol. It's like, how long are you going to say that for, dude? Like, this dude's been sober for like 4 fucking years. It's like, come on, man. Quit claiming to be a victim. It's like you're 4 years fucking sober, dude. You're living the fucking life. I mean, how long are you going to be a victim to the choices you made back then, dude? All excuses aside, we are responsible for what we do. It may very well be that our defects of character got the better of us, but we don't excuse our behavior. We need to accept responsibility and continue to be willing to have our shortcomings removed. Have there been times in my recovery where I made situations worse by talking to someone before I should have, or blaming my behavior on someone else? Have you ever had that happen to you? Let me write that on the whiteboard so that you guys can see it. Have there ever been times in my recovery when I've made, or in life, not even in recovery, just in life, when I've made situations worse by talking to someone before I should have, or blaming my behavior on someone else? Made situations worse. You ever like making amends too soon? Blaming my behavior on someone else? Okay, great. Fantastic. Sounds good. All right. How does promptly admitting my wrongs help change my behavior? How does promptly admitting your wrongs help you change your behavior?
I admitted that I was wrong when I tried to convince my wife that she was enabling my drinking.
Mm.
And I blame my drinking on her. That's the reason why I drink so much, because you always go get it.
Yep. Great example. Anybody else?
It for me, it starts a pattern. If step 10 has always been my favorite step. But in the beginning, I used step 10. I used it almost as a Catholic confessional. I gave myself the green light to say things I shouldn't say, but then knew at bedtime I could work, the 10th step and I'll be forgiven. I really wasn't working it properly in the beginning. But yeah, if I catch myself, I'm making a habit. I'm forming a habit that I've been out of. I haven't been in the habit of. If I say something to hurt somebody or I'm thinking a negative thought about somebody, I just let it fly. But when I'm consciously aware of it, I am creating a habit and it's effective because I do it less and less and less because I catch myself. Because if I don't, I'm going to have to go back and do a step 4 inventory again. And I don't want to do that. So I had to practice. It's like anything else, changing that thought process, conditioning my brain to cut it out and just hold myself accountable. If I'm thinking, Jimmy, you look like shit today. And even if I don't say that to you, I'm just using that as an example. I'll negate that. I'll negate that. Or if I say it to you, I will. I'll say, Jimmy, I really want to apologize. And it helps. It just, I have to work it. I have to work step 10 every day. Step 10 is in my life from the minute I get up to the minute I go to bed.
I love it. I love it. And
you look great.
Thank you.
Look like from King of Queens.
Yeah, dude, I get that all the fucking time, dude. Oh man, Kevin James. Yeah. I agree with you. And yes, and it sucks making amends for the same thing over and over. Like, dude, it sucks having to apologize for the same thing over and over and over and over again. If you're promptly making amends for the same dumb shit over and over again, you might not want to do that again. I'm not fucking saying I'm sorry again. I'm not going to do that again. So I would rather not engage in the behavior instead of having to apologize again. Like there, and what we see is there's more value in me not engaging in the behavior than harming this person continuously. So we start to actually practice empathy because we actually start to value other people's emotions and taking proactive action to basically, save their emotions because we're not hurting them and then making the amends. Yeah, in active addiction, we stop, like maybe we do this. We hurt someone, make the amends, hurt someone, make the amends, but we find ourselves powerless over not hurting the person. Like I have to hurt this person because I have to get alcohol. I have to hurt this person because I have to get drugs. This is a point where we don't have to do this. Going back to, remember, you don't have to live this way. I don't have to hurt this person. I don't have to do the same thing. Like I can change my behavior. I can go about this a different way, change my perspective or whatever the case may be. And that is where real change happens. And that's in the daily moments. It's not like a large moment that's going to produce that. Okay. Does anybody have any questions so far or anything? It is a step that you could start like today. You don't have to wait to do this step at all. Have there ever been situations in your recovery when you felt uncomfortable about acknowledging something you did well? Okay, maybe. I am going to let's read this and then we will
Well,
take a break. And let me share this with you. So this points out the need to continue taking a personal inventory and seems to assert that we do this solely to find out when we're wrong. But we can identify the times when we're wrong. We can't identify the times we're wrong unless we also have times we're right as a basis for comparison. Identifying the times we do things right informing personal values are as much a part of a personal inventory as identifying our liabilities. Most of us have a very difficult time with the concept of being right. We think of the times we vigorously defended an opinion because we just knew we were right. But in light of our recovery, we've come to understand that trampling over others in a discussion makes us wrong. Or we think of personal values. We know that we're right. We know they're right for us, but if we begin insisting that others live them, we would no longer be right, but self-righteous. So how do we get comfortable with being right? First and foremost, by working the 6 and 7 steps so our character defects don't turn our positive actions into negative acts. Then we have to realize that it will probably take some time and some trial and error before we are completely comfortable with our new lives in recovery. Have there been situations in which I felt uncomfortable about acknowledging something I've done well? Like when my mom's pocketbook would come missing in early recovery. And it wasn't like she just misplaced it. She'd say something like, "Has anybody seen my pocketbook?" And I would be like, "Fuck, dude." Like it's just the feeling. I didn't do anything. I just had the feeling, you know what I mean? So it's like, even though I'm doing the right thing, I'm not stealing. I didn't steal. I still have this feeling associated in those circumstances, you know, even though she's the one who misplaced her pocketbook. I had nothing to do with it. What we're going to do now, anybody have an example of that? Just as I assumed. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about how often we take this personal inventory and why is it important to take that personal inventory. And then we're going to get into, I want to show you guys something that debunks free will on a foundation of evolutionary biology. So if there's anyone in here who thinks that they're in control of their next behavior or anything like that, I'm going to prove you wrong using evolutionary biology. And then we're going to discuss how prayer and meditation leads into the next step. So take a 15-minute break. We'll come back at 11:20 and go over that stuff.
Jimmy, he does this every
Yeah.
Friday from 9 to noon. He was in Philadelphia. He moves around. I think he's in Philadelphia. Yeah. I know. Okay.